Welcome to the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Radiologists' 90th anniversary podcast series, where we celebrate 9 decades of excellence in radiology and radiation oncology. In this special series, we honour the remarkable careers, achievements and contributions of our members who have shaped our college and the profession. Today we're delighted to feature Sally Crossing, whose dedication and service to RANZCR have left an enduring mark on our RANZCR community. Sally Crossing AM, born in 1946 and passed away in 2016, was a prominent Australian consumer health advocate and the founder of the Breast Cancer Action Group, New South Wales. After being diagnosed with breast cancer in 1995, she dedicated her life to advocating for better cancer treatment and support services. She also played a key role in establishing the Cancer Voices movement in Australia and chaired Cancer Voices New South Wales. Her contributions to health consumer advocacy were widely recognised, earning her several awards, including being appointed as a member of the Order of Australia in 2005. The college is indebted to Sally for her tireless efforts and dedication. Her work has had a lasting impact on cancer advocacy and patient support in Australia. Sally's legacy will live on and continue to influence consumer engagement for many years to come. We hope you enjoy listening to this episode.
So you were first diagnosed with breast cancer in 1995. Was this your first face-to-face interaction with cancer and how the disease is treated in Australia?
Yes, very much so. I never imagined I would get breast cancer or any kind of cancer. I was 49, fully healthy, busily involved in jobs and children and houses and dogs and all the usual things one is at that age. I really, in those days, thought you got cancer for a reason. When I got cancer, I realised that anybody could get cancer. And it was during the process of the treatment, which was very patchy and not altogether satisfactory in the first year, that I began to realise that things were not nearly as good as they could be as far as provision of information, being given options for treatment, getting onto the right kind of treatment by the right person at the right time. The things were just didn't work as well as one might have assumed they would. And as a result, I wrote about my experience, which was picked up by the then National Breast Cancer Centre, which is then morphed into the National Breast Cancer and Ovarian Cancer Centre, which then morphed into Cancer Australia, which is what it is today. And they picked this up and published it. It was an article about whether to take a particular drug or not post-treatment. And then I got to know them and their interest in encouraging cancer consumer advocacy and activity. I can go on with the story further there, but...
But before we do, could you tell me how you learnt about radiation therapy as a form of treatment?
Yes, well, in 1995, the standard treatment for early-stage breast cancer was surgical excision, followed by 6 weeks of radiotherapy. So that's how I read about it.
Right, okay. Thrown in the deep end.
Yes.
So just going backwards then, what made you leave your career in government to establish the Breast Cancer Action Group in 1997? The
urge to do some giving back, but also to make a real difference for the many other women with breast cancer, which later on developed into cancer more generically, but the first few years, breast cancer. There was a lot of interest at the time. It had become a sort of issue that the treatment for breast cancer was not ideal at that period, and there was a lot of political interest, both sides of politics. Jeanette Howard and Anita Keating both got involved bipartisanly, and there was an act passed, and there was discussion, an act passed in Parliament, and the whole thing began to sort of gather momentum, and I began to think, what they need is the voice of the people with the disease. Funny idea. And yes, and as a result of having done a couple of days of training organised by the then National Breast Cancer Centre, I began to realise that my own background, my own professional background, would fit in very well. This is something I could actually do without too much difficulty, because I've worked in government, in politics, and on minister staff and so on, so I understood how the system worked. I didn't know much about the health system, but I did know about the government system and the concept of advocacy and sort of grassroots people wanting to express their views and needs.
Okay. And since establishing the Breast Cancer Action Group in 1997, you've further advocated for cancer by, and I've got a list here, you've established Cancer Voices in 2000, convened the Australian Cancer Consumer Network, sat on the board for the Cancer Council of New South Wales, the New South Wales Consumer Health Forum of Australia in 2005. You were made a member of the Order of Australia in 2005, convened Cancer Voices Australia and appointed to the board of the Australian Commission on Safety and Quality in Healthcare in 2014, appointed to the board of the Faculty of Radiation Oncology in 2014 and received your honorary doctorate at the University of Sydney in 2014. Did you set out to become a consumer advocate for cancer care, or is this something that really just happened to you?
Interesting way of putting it. The cancer just happened to me, and it made me realise that it just happened to a lot of other people too, who were in a similar position, sometimes in a worse position, less able to access information and advice. And look, it's not just cancer care. Cancer care is terribly important, of course, but it's everything that goes to support a good cancer outcome, which is access to information, research, consumers being involved in research, so that the direction of research actually meets the expectations and needs of the people, the end beneficiaries. There's a great range of aspects of that all sort of support a good cancer outcome and experience. The question?
Sorry, that's okay. Being a consumer advocate for cancer, for the cancer care and all the other streams that you just mentioned.
Well, people affected by cancer.
And people affected, yes.
Yeah.
Is this something that happened to
me,
you?
And so, after I met a number of women. In fact, we had an advertisement, not an advertisement, we had an article in the Sydney Morning Herald and a big photograph standing in the Art Gallery of New South Wales with a lot of naked busts. 2 or 3 of us who were interested and we said that we wanted to set this organisation to improve things for women with breast cancer, and asked people to contact us so that we could organise a meeting, which we did. We had 120 women here. And that was the beginning of it. So if I hadn't got cancer, I would never have done it. I would have just kept on my normal pathway. But having got cancer, I decided that this was a worthwhile thing to give up my paid career and start this new career, which is a voluntary career of advocacy for people affected by cancer.
And the advocacy work you've done, does that also educate general population as well, or do you mainly focus on
No, we don't.
Cancer
We focus on people, on the needs and views of people affected by cancer, because there's an enormous amount of public money spent on cancer awareness, and a lot of other organisations are doing their bit about specific cancers. We've always taken the view that we've got to focus and keep our powder dry for the things that are not being addressed. So if somebody else is doing something, we keep out of that. Or if somebody comes to us and says, what do you think about this? Well, we know that's actually an area that somebody else is doing, we will refer it over to another organisation.
Yeah.
No good doubling up. And as we're not being funded to do this, we can actually choose to focus on the things we think need to be focused on the most. I mean, awareness is very important. And so on. Except, of course, and this is a personal view, I mean, we're given to think that you can avoid getting cancer. Well, apart from smoking and sitting in the sun all day, you can't avoid getting cancer. So in a way, and I say this is a personal view, I don't see frightening the general population about avoiding getting cancer as nearly as important as concentrating on what to do if you are unfortunate enough to get cancer.
You mentioned before that you are volunteers in all these organisations that you're working with and working for, all foundations and voluntary-based organisations. How do you get your funding then to keep going? Is it through grants or is it through other fundraising means?
We're very clever. We try to keep away from funding. And this, you said that we're having this interview in my home, and it's my home office too. And so the other people on my executive committee, which is equivalent of a board, but we don't give it. We call it an executive committee because we actually want to execute things. We actually do things. We're not so we avoid. Obviously, we have to be a legal entity and have a bank account and have some money to pay for some things. But as we don't employ anybody, which saves an awful lot of time and money in itself, that keeps the admin down and the need to raise funds. It's a really sort of keep it simple, stupid process. We report annually. We have an annual report. We have a financial statement and so on. But we think it's important to be involved in annual scientific meetings, for instance, like the RANZCR one. And we expect those, for instance, a professional college like RANZCR to make it possible for consumers, unpaid, unsalaried consumers, to attend by giving them free registration. A few, which they do. Yeah. So that saves a lot of money. Yeah. So you make sure you can be involved in these things and you can present the consumer view when the health professionals are gathered together. Rarely there are other, we have in-kind help. For instance, the Cancer Council New South Wales prints and posts our green quarterly newsletter. We did get some funding from a particular organisation to produce that, and also that. These are these histories, 10-year histories, or the first 10 years of each of those organisations. So in answer to the question, you can do it without having to worry about fundraising. Having said that, when we set up the first directory of breast cancer specialists in New South Wales, which had never been done before, the GPs were just referring their patients to someone they went to university with who they knew did a bit of breast cancer surgery, different with radiologists, of course. But even so, it was still, who happened to know who. This was actually a directory with 3 specialties: surgical oncologists, medical oncologists, and radiation oncologists, and all their information in them. And we got $50,000 from the Department of Health, New South Wales Health, to do that. And we did that. We don't just do these things on our own because we're a bunch of volunteers from all different walks of life. So we find a partner who is interested and willing to actually undertake a lot of the hard yakka. In this case, it was the New South Wales Breast Cancer Institute out at Westmead. So that's just an example of...
It's great. It's great to be able to access those kinds of supports for your own organisation that supports.
Yeah. Well, you've got to find someone who believes that what women want and need is actually important, and that it doesn't exist. And then you can work together and collaborate and produce something. And it was regarded as a sort of, first of its kind in the world at the time.
And you primarily an advocate for women's cancers or for all cancers?
Now for all cancers.
Yeah, but started as women's cancers.
Yes. I founded and chaired the Breast Cancer Action Group New South Wales, as you said, in 1997, and got Cancer Voices going in 2000, and then gradually handed over to other people the running of the Breast Cancer Action Group and concentrated purely on Cancer Voices. Because, this is probably the reason for your question, because we realised that, well, a lot had been done for breast cancer. There are substantial organisations being set up and funded well. But also there were a lot of issues for people affected by cancer which were generic, regardless of what sort of cancer you have, like access to new drugs, instead of having to wait 2 years for the rest of the world, or a new even a radiology intervention through the MSAC process or something like that. They can be for a specific type of cancer, but the generic principle covers all cancers, that there should be faster and speedier access to things that are going to help you.
And at what point? Did you, do you have a pivotal moment or a particular memory that you can retrieve that signified the point that you were making a difference in doing this work and that you were going to continue doing it?
No. I can't think of a pivotal point. And look, it was incremental. People would say, oh, look, that directory of breast cancer treatment services, that's fantastic. You guys, you've done that. There were various other achievements which you'll see in those booklets there that drip, you reach, you think you've got there, it may take a few years, but then finally something happens and the achievement is there and it's terrific and everyone says it's terrific, and then you get a few awards. I mean, that's always nice. There are a few others that I haven't, you haven't listed there, that came reasonably early on, and I think, oh, that's good. Someone's taking those that we are actually doing something that needs to be done. And that's very rewarding, of course.
And you just found something else to do, and something else to do, and something else to do.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, the finding of things came from the membership of these organisations. We asked them, what is it that you have found difficult or you think needs to be changed? And people are never backward in coming forward. And when there's a strong, an obviously strong issue shared by many people, then that's what we need to concentrate on. It's very tempting for Sally Crossing to think, oh, look, I've got to be my bonnet about X, Y, Z. And sometimes I do it sort of on the side of it, but it's more important to actually be seen to be responding to the needs of a lot of people and actually responding to the needs of a lot of people, because that's what gives you your underlying credibility.
Mm. And then what motivates you to keep speaking out?
More issues that need to be dealt with.
Sure. Yeah. You were made a member of the Order of Australia for your work in cancer consumer advocacy in 2005. What was it like receiving notification of this prestigious award?
Well, it was quite an interesting experience. I was actually sitting on an island in the Venetian lagoon in June at the Venice Biennale, and suddenly I got the the letter was sent on. Very exciting, and of course you think, well, yes, maybe, not maybe. I mean, you don't keep doing things if you don't think it's worthwhile, but here is real formal recognition by one's own country, which is pretty exciting stuff.
Proud moment then?
Proud moment.
Moment.
And Mari Bashir, who was the patron of the Breast Cancer Action Group, actually gave it to me, which was very nice. So, I mean, and all the others, it was a sort of nice, rounding up. She was a great supporter of that. I thought we were doing a terrific job.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so if we can just stay with your honours for the time being, you also received an honorary doctorate from the University of Sydney in 2014 for extraordinary leadership and contributions to supporting those with cancer from diagnosis through treatment, care, support and survivorship, both advocacy and research. Would you like to share your memories in receiving this honour?
Well, hearing about it was extraordinary. A phone call from the Chancellor of Sydney University, who I happen to know anyway, and I simply couldn't believe it because honorary doctorates are few and far between in most faculties, and it was my own university, so that was nice too. Not that it was my own faculty, because I did economics and this was health sciences. But no, terrifically exciting. The Order of Australia is a national honour, but one from a university shows that they actually appreciate the sort of intellectual brainwork you've done towards achieving what you've achieved. So that was quite a thing, getting all dressed up here and having to give the occasional address to the whole of the great hall of the Sydney University, all these kids with their graduating with their PhDs and their everything all the way from the top to the bottom, and talk to them about why it's important to listen to the people that they've studied so hard to learn how to help. Because this has really been a whole change, and it's one of the very good things about RANZCR and my experience of them, that they recognise that it's important to actually hear from the end beneficiary, and not just as an individual, but a broad. It's what I try very hard to do, and we train all our consumer reps to do, is to put the broad view of people affected by cancer, not just me, Sally Crossing's particular experience or Eva's particular experience, but that can help, and it can trigger you in some ways, but it needs to be a valid thing to be advocating about and expecting people to change either practice or put more money into, or whatever it is that you're asking them to do. It needs to be, again, underpinned by the fact that this is the need or the view of the many, not just of one or two people. It's a democracy thing.
Yes.
Although not like the Senate.
If we could talk about your time on the faculty of Radiation Oncology Council at RANZCR as a consumer representative. You were appointed to this council in 2014. What was your perspective of the college prior to your appointment?
Well, I knew them a bit because I'd been on one of the tripartite committees some years before, and I'd worked with a number of the individual members through various other bits of advocacy around the place. So they weren't entirely unknown, but I didn't know, how, I still don't know the intricate workings and don't need to, but I didn't realise what a very well-organised, well-directed organisation it is, particularly compared to the other ones in the cancer area.
Others. What would be your perspective of the college since your involvement as consumer rep?
Well, they're very inclusive. They're always willing to listen. They always, at meetings and in out of session email things, they always seek my advice and often take it. Even better, and appreciate it. They're very appreciative, which is really nice, because if you, I do it because it's part of what I do, and it's become a passion and a commitment to put the voice of people affected by cancer. But when you actually see it working, and you're respected and accepted as a necessary and welcome part of the team, it's really good. On both sides, I think.
During your appointment on the FRO Council, you legitimised the consumer approval on the latest treatments for patients, and educating of GPs, etc., and launched Consumers Included in April this year. To date, you have 10 cancer-related conferences and events approved. Can you please explain how and why you thought legitimising processes was a necessity?
Well, that's really two questions there, because one is the business of the FROC, and the other is actually an initiative which I dreamt up earlier in the year, which the college has really seized upon.
That must have been my interpretation. I must have misread it.
Oh, that's okay. They go quite nicely together, really. But so during meetings of the council, issues will come up which are, I'll prick up my ears, or this is something important for people affected by cancer, whether it's informed consent, about financial informed consent, or treatment informed consent, or I'm very impressed with the clinical practice standards, which were developed before I came on board, although they've just been redone, and we're looking at them again. But they are the only ones in the cancer area that make it very clear what the professional should do. And they got quite involved trying to encourage the states to adopt them. And Queensland did. It wasn't to do with me, actually, but one state did. We as a consumer group wrote to all the health ministers and said, look, here's an excellent set of clinical practice standards for radiation oncology. Would you please make them, we don't like to say mandatory because everybody sort of scuttles away when you say mandatory, but part of the accreditation, or the main part of the accreditation process. And process is important because then people know what to, which is part of that question there, people know what to expect if they want to. I mean, lots of patients, individual patients, don't actually want to know about all that background stuff that supports good treatment. But some do, and so it's important that they should be able to be reassured that they exist and that they have gone through proper processes and that they are followed by the people that practice the specialty. So, but consumers included is a concept. It's a bit like a tick, a sort of heart tick or something. It's for those cancer organisations which hold conferences and events. If they include consumers, this is this inclusion thing, by supporting them financially and inviting them in the first place, there's about 5 criteria, then they get this sort of seal of approval. And RANZCR was the first big one to take that up very enthusiastically. And there's been 9 others.
Oh, that's wonderful. It really is. It's a great achievement in such a short amount of time.
Yes, it is a short amount of time, and we're hoping it will be. I mean, it's the sort of thing that can be applied beyond cancer, and so eventually that's the idea. And encourage all these. They sometimes will have one consumer standing up talking about my journey, and they think, well, that's hearing the consumer voice, but it isn't sufficient. You actually need to have a few more than one, and you need them to be involved in the whole event, or invite them to be involved in the whole event, so that you can actually hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
Amazing idea.
No. And how has the community, government, individual councils and doctors' views changed on treating patients since you were first diagnosed in 1995?
Well, it's changed a lot. The message has got through that it's shared decision-making is the go, informed decision-making, personalised treatment rather than put everybody through the same regime. Actually make sure that what you're offering your patient suits their particular physical and hopefully other needs. Expectations have risen on both sides. So I think health professionals now do expect to work more as partners in the process of helping the patient towards a good outcome. And likewise patients. And again, not all patients and not all doctors, because there's the old dinosaur school of medical professionals who are still hanging on there. They're all retired soon, but and there's a lot of patients who are still of the doctor knows best, particularly older men, which is not a genderist or sexist comment. It's a fact, who would never want any further information or other options or second opinion, or be interested to know there's a multidisciplinary team. And of course, this is one of the problems in radiation oncology, particularly with prostate cancer, that GPs tend to routinely refer men directly to urologists, surgical urologists, without giving them the option of talking to a radiation oncologist as well, which is an issue we've been dealing with and talking about a lot on the FROC. And Sandra Turner, as you probably know, has been very
proactive.
Proactive is the right word, yeah, and done it very well. But these are important things, and that needs, you need to change the attitude of the GP to start off with. The GP needs to know that there are that a patient should be offered all options.
Do you think that would be a generational change as teaching methods in universities change, or education change? Or?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, it's we all as a society now, a lot of us, I shouldn't say all, it's too much too broad, but a lot of us now we don't do anything much without doing a bit of research about and finding out what the options are. My husband got bitten by a tick and he was prescribed a very strong antibiotic. And instead of just taking it, he sensibly got on the internet to actually see, what the side effects of the antibiotic were and was it really worthwhile. And then he went back and talked to another medical person about whether to take it or not. And so actually, we are all more interested in taking some responsibility for decisions about our health as a society than we used to be. But generationally, yes, on both sides, both on the patient's side and the doctor's side. I worry a bit about medical training, and there's not a lot of, for the GP, that the actual oncology sections are quite skimpy. So whether they get enough information, I don't know, because once they specialise is a different thing. But if the GP, who's the gateway person, they really need to be probably given a bit more oncology training in their medical degree. Because it kills more Australians than anything else. It's our biggest disease burden.
Yeah,
people just seem to think, cancer, people don't have cancer, they smoke, they did this, they did that. Sort of tough, but they feel more serious about things like heart disease and diabetes, which I suppose are much more preventable than cancer is, which has an argument behind it too. But cancer actually is our biggest disease burden and kills more people. It's just pipped heart disease.
Do you know what the stats are on that? Like what's the percentage or the ratio of Australians that will be diagnosed with cancer?
It's 130,000, I think, a year.
Wow.
And about 45,000 die of it and 44,000 die of heart disease. So
they're big numbers.
Yeah.
They're huge. We're only a small 25 million people.
Yeah.
So upon reflection, what moment in your advocacy work are you most proud of? You've got some wonderful honours in there, from your honorary doctorate, your AM awards, and other awards that you've received, but which would you say was the one that you're most proud of?
Oh, gee, I hate those one questions. I've never been any good at them. Because it's a cumulative thing, and it's a time thing too. Something you've been working on for a long time suddenly turns into reality, and that's terrific. Sometimes it's something you've just been working on for a short time, and that gives you a great buzz too. I can't actually answer the question properly, I'm afraid. It is wonderful getting the awards is those two particular ones are obvious highlights. But getting awards is nice for me. It's even better for my organisations because it shows that what we're doing, the organisations I lead, it's showing that what we're doing is valued and worthwhile and successful, and it has made a difference. So to say that getting awards is the most sort of pivotal number one thing is sounds a bit. Yeah, and I wouldn't say that. It's actually achieving the goals, and there are a number of them. And I don't know which are the most important. Time will tell.
I won't make you choose one. Where do you see the future of patient care?
I don't quite know what you mean by the words patient care. Patient treatment?
Patient treatment, yeah.
Patient treatment. The future of patient treatment, gee, that's a broad question. I see the future of patient treatment, the cancer patient treatment, as that most cancer patients will be treated at a comprehensive cancer centre, whether it's in the public or the private system, and there are issues there because a lot of cancer is treated privately in small hospitals and settings. And the benefit of being in a large, and there were some big private ones like the Mater here at Crow's Nest, which have pretty much all the advantages of a large public hospital. But the higher the turnover in a hospital, this has been proven by evidence numbers of times, and the specialisation in that hospital and its associated consultants around the edges, the better the outcomes. So I'd like to see all patients going through a real comprehensive cancer centre with multidisciplinary care, which means there's your surgeons, there's your medical oncologists, and there's your radiation oncologists, and they all talk to each other once a week and decide amongst themselves what's the best path of action, of treatment they're going to offer the patient. Not give the patient, offer the patient. And then the patient will say, well, explain to me the pros and cons and the benefits, this and that. And then you make this shared decision-making concept, I think, is an important one. So when you take a bit of responsibility for your own treatment, you're going to be much more alert to what's happening to you and how to manage it well. If you're just sort of passively receiving it, it's again, some people prefer to do that, and one can't argue about that, but the involved, engaged, informed patient working with the involved, engaged, informed health professional is the best way.
The education on both sides.
Yeah. And of course all the other things like access to new and better treatments, which is something we're constantly pushing for as a consumer advocacy group. And faster access to them.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Just that I have very much enjoyed working with the faculty of the FROC. In fact, I think of all, and I've sat on a lot of, I mean, you mentioned a few there, but I've sat on a great many others over the years at both government and professional organisations and charities, cancer councils and so on. And I think this experience has probably been the most rewarding because of the attitude, which is they've got the right attitude.
So lovely to hear.
Well, and handy with the archive too.
A nice supporting archive. Well, Ms. Crossing, this actually concludes our interview today. So thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you this afternoon. The archive and recording we've made today will go to serve the generations of radiation oncologists and radiologists to come, and also the archive. So thank you so much for your time. Good. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you for joining us in this episode of the 90th Anniversary Podcast series by RANZCR. Stay tuned for more episodes featuring the remarkable stories of our members. You can find more information and updates about our 90th Anniversary celebrations on our website and social media channels. Until next time, thank you for listening and being a part of this milestone celebration.